Welcome to Manna from Heaven with your girl Sharon Lee. I am so happy you are here today as I continue this series with Carla Poole. It is such an interesting discussion on Blacks working together with each other in the community and the stereotypes that need to be dismissed and admonished. I said in my opening broadcast that this interview is geared towards Black people, but honestly, it's meant for all people. So join in with me today and eat the manna. Chew on the manna, chew on the word, glean from it. Learn how we can all work together, grow together, and make our relationships with our community and our world a better place. So come on and eat. Come on and eat and join in with me. Come on, you can glean. There's a lot to glean here. Come on, come on. Hello, Carla Crow. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming back to answer some questions that people have sent in. And I thought you were the perfect person since it since I pulled from what you wrote on social media. And so negative, and I wanted to start with negative racism, racial stereotypes and their effects on our attitude towards African Americans. This is what we're addressing today. As
Okay.
human beings, we naturally evaluate everything that we come in contact with. We especially try to gain insight and direction from from our evaluation on others. Would you say?
Yes, definitely.
Stereotypes are cognitive structures that contain the perceiver's knowledge, their belief, and their expectations about human groups. And there were stereotypes throughout history, Carla. You would know this. We had stereotypes about Jim Crow, Sambo, and Jemima Sapphire. That was a movie in the 1950s that depicted a Black woman as being bold and bossy and disaggressive. And so
Mhm.
now we're addressing, and there are other stereotypes I just pulled from those, but now we're addressing Blacks
Right.
against Blacks.
On
And
paper, I just don't care. Like you
mhm,
do your thing. But the idea of like when we are interconnected, right? So when you hurt, I hurt.
right.
When you're down low, I'm down low. So
Mm,
I'm in a position to lift you up because I can't continue in my situation, in my state, in my
mm.
level of opportunity, knowing that you are there, right?
Yeah,
And it
right, right.
doesn't mean being a white savior, right? We
Mhm,
don't need white saviors. We don't need people to fix us. We don't need people to correct us. We don't need what did they call the schools for indigenous people? The when they stole all of their children and tried to indoctrinate them into white culture.
Ah, hmm.
Those government
Yeah.
schools, Carlisle, Pennsylvania had one of the schools, right?
Hmm.
Uh, we don't we don't need to, and we don't need you to fix us. There's nothing wrong with our cultures, right?
Hmm. Right.
Our culture, if you embrace our culture, we can have a better America,
Yeah,
right? If
right.
you
Hmm.
embrace that, and it doesn't take away from you. So this is one of the things I am going to say that I figured out, and this will be my last statement,
Hmm.
is I won't give you the background, but
Hmm.
oftentimes one of the reasons that I found that white people hold so strongly onto superiority, entitlement, privilege, or even some of the stereotypes is because to let it go, there's somewhere in their head to let
Hmm.
it. There is like, who am I then? I'm nothing.
Right.
I don't. I don't have any value. There's, you
Hmm.
know, I can point out their thing, their thing, their thing. So the thing that we got is power and privilege, right?
Right, right.
I'm
Hmm.
gonna tell you what white people have, and this is why you can let go of the superiority and the privilege. And this is
Hmm.
something that adds to society. I think culturally, the concept of individualism is not entirely terrible,
Hmm.
and it is extreme, it's bad. But
Hmm.
combined with a culture that may be too overly, you won't leave home because, like, the best thing for God to move, God wants to use you
Hmm.
in Pakistan, right? But you can't leave and go to Pakistan because your family says that you can't leave us, right? You have a duty to us. You can't go away. And so they
Hmm.
try to pull you in, sort of like when Jesus was like, my brothers and sisters are here. You're my brothers
That's
and
right.
they, they can't hang out at the door, right? They're just like Ecclesiastes says, there's a time and a place for everything,
Right.
right? There's a
Hmm.
time war, there's a time for peace, there's a time for this, a time for that, right? Sometimes there's a time for people to go, but they can't go because they're so tied to their community,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And even on a smaller level, like when a person's in a gang and something inside of them is like, I don't like this, I don't want to do this, but to leave it means to leave this community that I love, right? So they're so tied to it. When I lived in Japan, and I loved living in Japan, and being a foreign Black person in Japan was heaven. But made friends with a lot of Japanese people, right? Really good friendships. And one of the things I began to understand was the oppressive nature it can be. If you are a diva naturally, like you grew up and you're like, or you're really, really talented and you want to be out there. If you grow up in a society where everybody is supposed to act the same, be the same, when you're exceptional, you're not allowed to be exceptional.
Right.
So what they do, they feel suffocated, they get depressed, or they pick up and move to another country so they have the opportunity to breathe. And I said, you know what? That was the first time I realized that there was beauty to this culture that was in America that I used to be like, oh, we need to be more we oriented. We need to be more community oriented. That's what's destroying us. And then I go to Japan. I'm like, oh, this is what it looks like in its other extreme, right? When all you need to do is shame a person and say, we're excluding you from the group as a country. And you like fix because you can't do anything, right? Because that's what it is. There's a balance. White culture, and I was telling somebody in the organization, right? I found culturally, white people are such detail-oriented sticklers, right? I think that's why they were able to colonize so well and pass it on, right? Here's the blueprint for colonization, right? Because they, you know, it's really good at like structures and breaking stuff down. That's why, you know, you're not considered really scholarly unless you write a book and you've done all this research and right? You think about the contributions to scientific advancement that comes out of like these European nations, and they're in African nations too. I'm not taking that away, but what I'm saying is like this ability to be able to document, write, spread, break that down. I think a lot of that is derived out of the mixing of the, you know, these European cultures together. They do that well. But can you imagine? But we, right? Let me use Black people because I could talk about other groups, but specifically Black people. When you think about us, we speak in we's, they's, you know, a lot of generalities, right? Sometimes I find when I work with white people, they're so in the minutia, they don't see the big picture and the other impacts, right? They're so busy breaking everything down. Oh, we gotta get another study because we gotta look at it from this angle. Oh, you know, you're so busy breaking it down that then the other person who's like sitting back and looking at the big picture because they see how everything is connected. And they're like, oh no, it's just broken right there. So let's take your study and focus on that spot because that's where the problem is, right? You still constructing the spider web because you so much into the detail, right? I really believe
we're more into the hands-on.
We are, right? And we're like, you know, let's get it done, right? I think that and part of it is like, that's why we're workers, right? I have a friend who's a psychologist, and he said, one of the things that's very distinctive as a psychologist when you are helping a Black person who comes in for therapy, have like a white person. He was like, you know, generally speaking, Black people come in and be like, here's my problem, fix it. Right? White folks come in and they're like, I need to figure out what my problem is.
Let's study it.
Right? And it is like, it's a different thing because we're like, we gotta get it, right? Combining those two worlds, embracing it instead of trying to suppress it, right? Native Americans, if there was an embrace of Native American culture and this idea of appreciating the land, we wouldn't be in this climate crisis that we're in. Because the concept of consuming until, we're finished with that, let's move on to the next commodity, right? They would have said, no, you need balance because if you take too much from nature's going to come back and take from you.
That's right. That's right.
So, but it's the embrace of the difference and the joining of them. And white folks have to let go of the fear that they will be irrelevant.
Yeah, that's
Let
exactly
they
it.
hold on
Mhm,
to the
mhm,
power and privilege
mhm,
they've had.
mhm, mhm,
Done.
mhm. And they don't mind just saying that. A good example of that, what you just said. And I'm going to say this: white people don't mind helping you as long as they can help you. But as soon, I'm not saying all white people, but I've seen it a lot. As soon as they see you going beyond them, and they don't need you, and you don't need them to help, that threatens them a little bit. They like
Right.
teaching you. They like teaching you, but but they want to teach you to a certain level. I'm not saying all white people like that. It's
Oh
a
yeah,
but
no.
as soon as they see you going ahead and getting ahead, then it's like, wait a minute, we need to pause on this because I like to help you and I like you as long as you are a little bit beneath me. But they won't say it like that.
But think about how that totally makes sense in the infrastructure of what slavery was,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you had we think of like white man slave owner, but we
Mm-hmm.
forget it was a white man that was a slave owner,
Right.
but it was poor white folk who used to be indentured servants who now got elevated just slightly to
Yeah.
become an overseer,
Yeah.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
but guess what? They still living in nasty quarters. They still not really getting any money. They still struggling, but it's like, but I'm not the slave,
That's
right?
right.
But I get to whip the slave. And it's
Yeah,
like,
right.
but, but you do know you still call him master, right? You do know that you can't live without him neither, right?
And you're
You
still benefiting him.
right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You are knocking me down when if you and I join, this will be our land, buddy. Right?
Yes, 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 yes.
But that's the narrative. Like that's why
Mm-hmm.
it's so important. I think that's why the news, every time something is going on with the stock market or economy or anything like that, all of a sudden some race thing drops in the news.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so and so. Like I think that I said this before. I think that George Floyd thing went further than expected, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it dropped. Black men get killed by the police all the time.
Yes.
This stuff gets recorded and does not get leaked. So,
Mm-hmm.
or it doesn't get played on the news, right? How
Mm-hmm.
many times has somebody been beat and somebody probably sent that video to a news station?
Yes, right,
But the
exactly.
news station chose to perpetuate it when it did. Same thing with
Mm-hmm.
Trayvon. There was crazy stuff going on in the Supreme Court. There was crazy stuff going on in Congress. So all of a sudden, we hear about Trayvon Martin and what happened
Mm-hmm.
to him. It's up in our right,
Yeah,
and the
right, right,
white
right.
people are like, "You're going to take away our power," and the black people are
Mm-hmm.
like, "Give us something. We don't want to take it away. We just want more than what we have."
Right,
Right,
that's
and
right.
so everybody's yelling about that, and they all got distracted because that was the goal, right? If if these white people, every white person who's ever said, I don't understand why they say I have privilege, my life has not been that good, right? They say that my life, white people's life is better than theirs, right? That person right there,
Mm-hmm.
you're probably right. You might be living a crappy existence in the United States of America. But why are you looking at the person of a different color and being mad at them when they don't have power over your circumstance?
Right,
Why
that's
not be
right.
mad at the master
Yeah,
who didn't
yeah.
free you, who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't pay you for the service that they give? You're working off a debt that they say that you owe. And
Yeah.
so you got to be like, if the slaves, if can you imagine if the overseers were like, yo, they got both of us and that can't keep us all down. And we can go over to the other plantations.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna tell the other overseers
Yes,
that
yes.
we all joining together because enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
We get rid of our debt, right? And they'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, but England would have come in. They wouldn't have been there fast enough on them little ships to
Hello?
get over. They wouldn't have got
Mm-hmm.
there fast enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. Their armies could not have gotten there as fast,
Right.
if they had joined
Mm-hmm.
together. But that class of poor white people, right? You exist at a level to maintain the inferiority of the other groups.
Right.
You keep It's what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump catered to a group of people who were struggling, right?
Mm-hmm.
He told them whatever they wanted to hear so they could be the gatekeepers to keep the other ones out,
Yes. Who he cared
right?
nothing about before.
He don't care nothing about that bottom
Mm-hmm.
row
Or
people.
now.
Never did,
Mm-hmm.
never will.
No,
But
that's exactly right.
he will capitalize on their pain. He will
Mm-hmm.
capitalize on their hurt for his benefit,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
versus you had someone like Dr. King, and he was assassinated when he went to the overseer and said, listen, this is crappy for you. This is crappy for us. This is not working for either one of us. Let's flip this thing upside down peacefully, because it's more of you than it is of them. It's more of us with you than it is of them, right? We have the group. They will have to change the rules. When Dr. King said start working with Dr. King and Fred Hampton are two perfect examples of people who joined with the lower class whites and said, we want you to realize that we are fighting the same fight together. Convince them, and when they started coming over, they were murdered. Right. That tells you that that's the secret, that's the counterculture. Don't fall into the trap, right? If they want you to hate, then love.
Yes, right, exactly.
If they want you to love that celebrity, you need to question it, right? Why, right? Why do they want you to love the celebrity? What is this person pouring into you, right? Why do we have so much reality TV right now? Why do we have so many fake conversations about race? They'll talk about, oh, what are you putting into the schools, right? So it's a us versus them conversation versus, you know what? We are behind so many of these other nations have issues, right? England obviously has a color issue too.
For sure.
But what's interesting is we are all immigrants in this nation, right? All of them. Except for the people who lived on this land. We were stolen. We ain't asked to be here, but we were stolen. We got to be here.
Right.
You got, you have all these different groups. There's no reason that we should still be talking about hierarchy here, right? Like in my head, when I lived in Japan, that was their country. I needed to respect the laws of their land and their rule. And they were Japanese. I am not, right?
Right.
Their rules, right? America, we're all mutts. We're all immigrants. I mean, not mutts. We're all. Can you see me?
We'll finish it.
You're still slow. I say something?
Okay, we'll finish it up here. But this is so good. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Keep going. You remember where you were?
Oh no, it actually was the last word I was going to say.
Okay, well, just finish, just sort of end it. I want you to end it. I'll come in.
I don't know how to. Hold on.
Okay, what was your sentence? Where were you? Where did you leave off?
Hold on.
Okay, let me look here.
I don't even remember. It's gone. It's gone.
Okay. So you think you ended that there?
I did. Okay. So if you want to like a final sentence, I would just say, I think that we, at the end of the day, if we stop focusing so much on difference and we start with commonality, what do we have in common, right? And then I'm not saying ignore the difference, because difference is important, right? Difference is what distinguishes us. I think that we should start with our commonality. So it's like, man, we're so much alike.
Yeah.
And the ways, and also now here are the ways that we're different, right? And then from there, you can start to see the beauty, right? Like I look outside in Hawaii and I see this really beautiful landscape. But part of the reason that it's so beautiful is that the trees are not the same. I'm looking at different trees, different mountains or ridges in the mountains that add to it. It's not all the one same cloud, right? That's just sitting there, right? It's moving. And so it's in the diversity that we find the beauty. But you got to recognize, like, but when I'm looking out of there, I know that this is all nature working together as one. You know what I mean? So.
Right. So, Carla, I am so glad. I mean, this was so good. And I'm going to pull on you again. I am. I love the way that we ended with the questions, and they were predominantly for children. And the last question wasn't, but predominantly for children. And I like that because the song that Whitney Houston used to sing, I mean, it's so I believe the children are our future. It seems so, but it's the truth. And we have to get it together in order to pass it down to them. And I thank you for coming in, joining it in. And I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to pull you in again, but I'm going to end right here so I don't wear you out.
Okay.
But thank you for joining in and
Thank you.
with the stereotypes with blacks against blacks. And hopefully we will grow from this and learn from this. And I want people to look at to go to my YouTube channel, Divinely Designed Women of Wisdom. It says Women of Wisdom, but it's also for men as well. And learn and glean and ask questions and bring, send me more questions. I love the questions that were coming in, and we will answer them. I promise you, I will pull caller in again. I will make her come somehow. So, but thank you, Carla, so much. And
No problem.
you were really a gem. You have a great day there in Hawaii.
You too. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
All
Thank you,
right, bye.
Carla. Bye bye. Hello. Welcome back to Kingdom Purpose TV with Sharon Gaines Lee as your host. Thanks for joining me. And I just wanted to say before I left, I wanted to put a plug in for my book, TT the Color Calico Cat. I hope you can see that. Can you see it behind my face? TT the Color Calico Cat by Sharon Gaines Lee and illustrated by Michelle Armbrust. And this book also comes, it doesn't come with, but you can also order a coloring and activity book on Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble. It's a great book that actually goes with TT the Color Calico Cat. It is an excellent book for teaching kids about loving the skin that they're in and diversity. And TT, if you know anything about calico cats, which I learned early on before I did this book, but calico cats they actually have every color of the human race on them, those cats. And so I use that book to teach kids to love the skin that they're in, because you can't change everybody's opinion on the planet Earth, but you can change who you are on the inside. And so it bully-proofs your child. Bully-proof helps to bully-proof them that they're loving the skin that they're in. And as you're reading it to them, you're going to get bully-proof too. So come join us. Go to Amazon.com or Barnes and Noble and order TT, the Color Calico Cat by Sharon Gaines Lee and illustrated by Michelle Armbrust. And some of these podcasts that I'm doing it on the next book that I'm about to release, and it's called Good Morning, not morning as in morning time, day, nighttime. It's good morning, like your morning. My husband went home to be with the Lord in August of 2021, not so long ago. And the Lord cornered me, not in a bad corner, but the way I was mourning, because initially I was shocked, I was mad, I was going through those transitions, sort of like it read like the Psalms with my life, like David. Like, if you read through the Psalms, sometimes David was like, what's going on, God? Why have you forsaken me? Where are you at? Well, my journey concerning Herbie, my husband, going home to be with the Lord was sort of like, and so God adjusted me. And then he said, I want you to journal your journey. And I did that. And it was so good, because God says his sheep hear his voice. And so I knew that to some degree. But when I start journaling, God speaking to me in a transition, because some days it was up and some days it was down. But when I journaled it, it was I saw how involved God was in my life on a daily basis. And so the book is called Good Morning, and it shows you how to get into that space where you can mourn, because you're going to miss your loved ones. You're not going to see them for a while. So I understand that. But knowing where they are and knowing what heaven is and knowing that it's not La La Land or Alice in Wonderland or Harry Potter, it's a very real place, and Earth was actually taken out of it. But getting some details from the word concerning heaven makes it so apropos. Makes it so good, makes it so practical and so realistic in how you mourn, because you're not just figuring this thing out or making stuff up. I'm not saying Herbie's an angel looking at, no. Angels are angels and Herbie's Herbie. When I get to heaven, I'm not going to meet my husband as the angel. I'm going to meet my husband as Herbie. And so I journaled my whole journey with that, and it's going to be it's a collection that we've placed inside of a book called. So look out for that. Join my podcast on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock on Kingdom Purpose TV. Wednesdays at 11 o'clock a.m., let me say that, on Kingdom Purpose TV. And we'll be talking about good mourning, because if you ever lost a loved one, or mourning is not just pertaining to death either. Mourning, you can mourn because you're empty nester and your kids have gone off to college or they got married and it's just you and your husband, so you go through that period of mourning. Or you can mourn because you don't have enough finances. You can mourn because there's various reasons that you would be tempted to mourn in. And so we need to know how to mourn properly, that we're getting, like my father used to say, we're getting the butter from the duck. So we're learning how to do it properly so that it's an advantage and not a disadvantage. Like things like when God says, when your mother and father forsake you, God will take us up. We need to know how to apply those things and how to believe God in what he's saying. So join me on these podcasts. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about a lot of things that we didn't always talk about in the church because we had to pretend like we believed everything, or, whatever. But join the podcast with me, because we're going to keep it real and we're going to have a lot of fun. So thank you. Bye-bye.